Hey guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. Jay Helmsing here. Today I'm going to give you my shooting impressions for the CZ P-10C. Now at this point I've got about 500 rounds through this gun, and if you want the 5-second version, this gun is outstanding. Okay, I'll get into why here in just a moment, but as far as the short and the sweet of it, this is an outstanding gun, and I really can't find too much that I would change on this gun. I won't say it's the perfect gun because I don't think there is a perfect gun, but it is a darn good gun. So if you're on the fence about this gun, find somebody that's got one and go shoot it. It is that good of a gun, okay? So first thing I want to do is start out by eating a little bit of crow. And there are a few things that I kind of nitpicked when I first got this gun out of the box, and basically all of them at this point have been discovered to be completely unfounded. Okay, so we'll start out with the issue that I noticed with the safety up here in the slide. And there's an out of battery safety right here. It's a small design, and it just does not look robust. And I said it was look like plastic to me. Well, the coating has started to wear off of this, and it's definitely not plastic. It's some kind of metal. So you know, if you're concerned about that, it's definitely a metal part. I've also been doing some reading and some research, and they say that this style of out of battery safety is a little bit more robust than the plunger design, and it's not as susceptible to being gummed up with carbon or anything and starting to get a lot of friction buildup. So this overall should be a more reliable part than the plungers that are on almost every other gun out there, as far as the Glock style and M&P and whatnot have all that plunger style there, and this is definitely a different design that does the same function. So my issues with that out of the box with first impressions, I've changed at this point. I would say that I don't really have a whole lot of concern with this thing functioning at this point, but I'm going to keep my eye out there and kind of see how these things perform out in the wild. The next big gripe that I had, not big gripe, I didn't have any big gripes with it. The next gripe that I had was that the slide release, and I'm going to call it a slide release because that's how I use it, was very stiff. And as classic for CZ production guns, this has started to wear in over time, and it's just becoming a fantastic magazine release. I mean, it doesn't matter, both sides for you lefties out there, but it is really coming into its own. And I did accelerate that wear a little bit. I polished a surface inside here, and I'll show you what I did in just a moment to kind of accelerate that wear. But I think if you got out there and you put 1,000 rounds, made this work as a slide release every time, it would slowly turn into this. There's nothing I did as far as recontouring or any machine work that changed the way that worked. It basically just had coatings on the assembly for the slide release itself and on the piece that it mounts up to in the slide here, and basically all you have to do is take one of those coatings off or wear it down a little bit to make it a little more smooth. So if it's catchy at all, or if there's any friction at all, you're really going to feel it through this button here, the way it's designed. At this point, excellent design. I've not had any issues with overriding this or pinning it down or anything, like I do on the Glocks. I've got a chronic issue with that on some guns. Not had that issue at all with this gun. So it functions perfectly. The design it's a little bit plain Jane, but it does its purpose. It stays out of my way when I don't need it. It's there when I do need it. It's right within my thumb reach, and it's functioning the slide just perfectly at this point. I've heard some people say that these guns will auto forward, that you don't need to push that down, that if you just slam a loaded magazine up in here hard enough, it'll auto forward. I have tried and tried and tried. I can't get mine to auto forward, which I prefer it not to auto forward. So just kind of my range report there. Some people like it because it's a little bit faster, but I would rather have it to where I can actuate it, on my command to load that round in there, instead of just depending on a flaw to do it basically in the design. So no auto forwarding that I've noticed, and it's just becoming a very smooth system to use. So that gripe, that complaint is completely out the window as far as I'm concerned. I also had some stiffness with my mag release. Being ambidextrous, and with that, the style of design it is, that is completely worn out as well. I've not done anything at all to the mag release, and it's just smoothed itself out. So very easy to actuate. It's ergonomically in a very nice position, and I also, again, I like the contouring of it. It just keeps it nice and out of the way, and it keeps me from hitting it with my opposite side finger, and it also keeps it from digging into my middle finger here as I get a high grip on the gun. So very nicely designed. I have no complaints with the controls and the way that they're wearing into become functional. Out of the box, don't judge it that way. Put some rounds through these, and I think over time you're going to find, just like any other CZ pistol that I've gotten my hands on, they're going to slowly wear in to become just tremendous and phenomenal pistols. Just out of the box, they're a little bit glitchy and a little bit stiff. So, you know, it is what it is, right? So, moving on with that, I'm going to show you guys the part that I polished here with the, you know, try to correct that, the slide issue that I had, or the perceived slide issue that I had with the slide release. And basically what you have is this ramp right here that your rounds are going to sit on top of, and it's, you know, what's going to pin the round down to load it in to the chamber itself. On the very front here, you can't see it, but it indexes on the front. This slide catch system indexes on this front piece here. Now, I didn't touch any of this at all, and I don't recommend you do, because you don't want to mess with anything around the chamber, you know, because you could make some tolerances crazy in there, and then you're really going to affect the reliability of the gun. So I didn't touch anything at all in the slide part. But what I did down here, if you guys see this kind of horseshoe shaped piece in here, it's all one solid piece, so it's nice and robust. But as it works, the very front right here, this part, shouldn't say the front, it's to the very rear, but this piece right here is what indexes off of that part in the slide. Okay, so it pins it there. Now what happened was, this is just a very well coated piece, and obviously the slide has also got a coating on it in there. So those two coatings were just creating a lot of friction in my gun. And what I did is I just went to the back of this and try to get in the sunlight so you guys can see it a little bit better. But right in here, I basically just took a Q-tip and some polish and just polished it down a little bit to get that coating off of this, because that's what's going to happen anyway over time as you wear it down. And I don't recommend using like a Dremel or anything, because you don't want to, you know, do any machining. You don't want to change the contour of this to make it unsafe. But you do just want to kind of take a little bit of the finish off of it and make it a little bit more smooth, and that made a world of difference. And again, you don't have to touch your gun. I think if you did this over 2,000 rounds and you were making it, forcing it to function as a slide release and to kind of you know, get it worn in there like it should be, it's going to do it on its own. So just something I did to accelerate that. But at this point, it's just a great slide release. I would highly recommend this style slide release to basically anybody. I mean, it's just been very easy to use, and like I said, it's out of the way when you don't need it. As far as shooting impressions go, I don't really have any downside, except that the recoil impulse is a little bit more obvious. It's a little more felt than you're going to get out of some guns. However, I don't get a lot of muzzle flip out of it like I did with the VP9 or the PPQ. Again, I kind of attribute some of that felt recoil to this design here, this kind of undercut that goes underneath the slide, where as it recoils back, you're already fighting it over the top of your hand. And it seems like if you can kind of get a gun that's got, you know, put your hand a little bit further back like this, it's almost like you're catching a baseball, where you can kind of, you know, manage that recoil a little bit better, because it doesn't have that head start where it's already got a cantilever action over the top of your hand. With that said, it's not at all unmanageable. It's a very easy gun to shoot, and it's a very easy gun to shoot fast. So I don't think it's going to be a concern for anybody, but if you're just comparing recoil impulse, it does have a little more felt recoil than like than an M&P does, or a Glock does, or something like that. I've shot a Glock back-to-back with this just almost every time I'm at the range, and you can definitely feel the recoil a little bit more through this gun than you can in a Glock. So I'll just put that out there. Again, not a downside, it's just the kind of physics of the gun itself. So just kind of expect that. It's not going to be the softest shooting gun in the world, but as far as recoil management, it definitely handles that recoil very well. And as far as muzzle flip, it's got a little flip, but as it comes back down, the way the ergonomics of this gun are designed, it just falls right back down into that pointed position. So there's not a whole lot of adjustment or anything you got to do as far as you know, making quick follow-up shots with this gun. The trigger, oh, the trigger. The trigger on this gun is definitely my favorite out of the box trigger, and it may be my favorite striker trigger of all time. So at this point, I wouldn't recommend any changes at all to this gun, aside from the sights, which we'll get into here in just a minute. But ergonomically, it's great. I can't see the need for any extended controls because they're all in the right spot. The trigger is it's just top notch, and it's not the best trigger as far as, you know, on paper, but as far as shooting impressions, I love this trigger, and it's just the way, it's just my preference, but it is just a fantastic out of the box trigger. It's stiff enough where it's got like a 5.5 pound brake. It's stiff enough that you don't have any concern of it accidentally going off, or while you're holstering it, you know, accidentally setting it off or anything. So it's definitely a safe gun to shoot. It's not a super light trigger, but The way it's designed is just top notch. It rides back to this wall, and as you guys can see, I'm going to go to the wall here. The take-up is very smooth, very clean, but there is a take-up there, which is a nice safety feature. But as you get back to that wall, it'll pull just a little bit, and you guys can see the trigger move. It pulls just a little bit through that wall, and as I'm pulling, there's stacking going on. It's getting a little more and more stiff. And I really like that because I've got kind of history with double action, single action guns, and I'm used to that, and that double action pull, it getting more and more stiff as that spring compresses. So I'm very used to that feeling. And it's just a little bit, maybe just a couple millimeters of movement back there, but that little movement there is really making it a nice gun to shoot for me, because I have a little bit of an issue with the guns that shoot right off the wall. Like the M&P guns will shoot right off that wall. So once you hit that wall, you just put a little more pressure, it doesn't move, and all of a sudden it breaks. And for me, I just have an issue with the way that works. And I can't explain, you know, it's such a minute difference that I can't really tell you why I'm mechanically better with a trigger like this, but I am. And I just like that little bit of stacking and that little bit of feeling, and then the braking there. And I wouldn't say it's mushy at all. It's got a very nice, clean brake, but it does have some stacking, and I just prefer that stacking. As far as the return of the trigger or the reset, it's top notch. I don't know that I've ever felt a gun aside from a SIG 229 with a short reset package and an adjustable trigger. That's the only gun that I've ever shot that resets faster or quicker than this gun does. I've never shot or even felt a striker fired gun that resets like this. And it's just a millimeter or two off of that, and you've got a fully cocked trigger, and again, you're not on that wall where it's going to break. You got a little bit of pull to come through, and because of that, because of the fast, very, very short reset and the way the trigger functions, I can shoot this like a house on fire. I mean, it's just a tremendous gun to shoot. I can put you know, double taps on targets just effortlessly. And as a matter of fact, I ran a bill drill with this, completely stock sights and everything. I ran a bill drill with this, and it's my fastest out-of-the-box bill drill out of any gun. Is a 1.69 with all 6 rounds, you know, impacting steel, and it wasn't a full-size steel target. It's a third-size steel target at the standard 7 yards. So it's just a tremendously nice gun to shoot, and you can shoot it fast with very, very little training on it. So I would highly recommend getting your hands on this gun, if for nothing else than to feel the trigger. And I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but for my style of shooting and my preferences, it's just a glorious experience to shoot this trigger. And I know it sounds goofy, but it really is a nice, fun time shooting this gun. And it feels like a work trigger. I'm not gonna you know, beat around the bush at all. It does feel like an Apex M&P or something like that that's had some work done to it. It's just a tremendous job getting an out-of-the-box gun to feel like that. So kudos to CZ on that part. Accuracy has been superb. It's just about what you could expect out of any out-of-the-box striker-fired gun. It's grouping very nicely. It's probably more accurate than I am. I'm not noticing any flyers or anything crazy. Sometimes you'll notice, you know, some odd recoil impulses or a flyer on the first round or something. I've not noticed anything like that with this gun. It's just been accurate all the way around, and it's had a nice grouping pattern. The only gripe that I'm going to talk about are the sights, and again, these are aluminum sights. So the fact that they're metal, again, puts them over a lot of guns out there. They've got a decent functional sight picture. There's nothing wrong with them. However, like I mentioned before, you're going to have a little bit of durability issue because it's aluminum and it's not steel. So, you know, it might have saved them a few bucks here and there, but I think probably a better route to go would have just been to, you know, eat the cost and put some steel sights on here. And as you guys can notice, my front sight is narfed a little bit. And I do a little bit of reliability testing in these first few range sessions that I do with a new gun while I'm shaking it out. I don't do any crazy gauntlet or, you know, throw it in a creek or something like that, but I do bash them around a little bit. And this gun I typically will drop my guns from hand level just to see if there's any sort of issue that would pop up from that. So this gun was dropped slide upside down from hand level, and that's just an impact mark from the gravel. So as you can see, the finish of the slide, it's typically what I'll check, you know, with that sort of thing. But the finish on the slide is fine, very durable. Just the front sight there. The rear sight probably would have got narfed too if it impacted on that. But you guys can see there's a ding there, and it has changed the profile of the sight just a little bit. So as to be expected, I guess, from an aluminum sight, but just beware, it's not a super durable sight system. It's, you know, you bash it on the wall, you drop it or something like that, it's probably going to get narfed up, and it may get narfed up to the point that it's not going to be functional. So the only thing I'd recommend doing to this would be to put a ton of rounds through it and put some sights on it. So I'm looking at this set of Dawson sights to throw on there now, and other than that, incredible gun. You know, kudos to CZ, and I'm really excited to see how this shakes out in the wild. You know, keeping an eye on if any police departments pick it up, any military units start using this, then we'll really get some data back and see how they're doing with a lot of rounds through them and with the, you know, a lot of day-to-day wear and that sort of thing. So I would hesitate to say that it's going to be on the same plane of durability as a Glock at this point, just because of the overall track record of a Glock. And, you know, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, how Glock got those pistols in the hands of so many police officers, but the fact that there's so many out there in the wild and so many that are serving on a duty role on a daily basis is just going to be a big hurdle, I feel like, for any gun maker to overcome, as far as the durability reputation that Glock has developed with just thousands and thousands, millions of rounds, right, and thousands of guns out there on the duty scene every day, not just concealed carry or anything like that. So as you guys know, a lot of gun owners might just buy guns and go to the range once or twice a year, and that's not really putting a durability test out there. But if you carry the gun every day and you're forced to qualify, forced to train with it, you're going to start finding those nuances and those issues that come out. And you know, I've shot this back to back with Glocks. They've both been completely reliable to me. But you're always going to have that kind of in the back of your mind, is, you know, what's the long-term verdict here? What's the long-term verdict as far as reliability? And it's just an unknown at this point. I don't see anything, and I've not noticed anything that is cause for alarm. But at the same time, there's just, you know, 30, 40 years of experience and training and everything. And yeah, Glock doesn't really innovate, and they've stuck very closely to their original design, but at the same time, they've been able to find those little issues that they've had here and there, work them out, and then just stay with a functional design that just continues to build on its own track record, as opposed to, you know, making a radical design change that may possibly induce some sort of an issue down the road that's just unknown. And again, this pistol is just too new for me to put that complete stamp of approval for it to be a rock solid pistol and a good functional gun forever at this point. Whereas I would probably do that on a Glock if somebody were to ask if they wanted the most reliable pistol. You know, there's just so much to draw from on the Glock platform, where we don't really have a lot of data yet on this. But, you know, if you're looking for a gun to shoot, even a first gun, it's a tremendous gun, and it's a tremendous buy. They're going for, you know, right around $400, give or take. They're about $100 less than your out of the box Glock. So two thumbs way up. I can't really say enough about the gun. I've been loving the gun as far as shooting it. It acts like a full-size gun as far as the functionality of it, the grouping and everything. It's small enough to carry. It's just an awesome gun. So big winner in my book. CZ, you did your homework, and you've done well. And I recommend anybody out there, if you're on the fence about this gun, or if you're interested in it or something, just go to a range and see if you can rent one, you know, just to put some time behind that trigger and see if it's for you or not, because it's that good of a gun, and it's the price is right and everything. I just can't find anything that I would say to avoid at this point, other than changing the sights maybe on your own personal gun. So you know, take it for what it's worth. That's my opinion on the CZ P-10C. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I do have some footage on my Instagram of me shooting the CZ P-10C, so be sure to tune into that. I appreciate your likes, subscribes, comments, recommendations, so keep those coming, and I'll keep coming at you guys. I appreciate it. Take care.